Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time we'll talk about references and how to coach your references to help them really work for you and not just be sort of a placeholder. Now, in a tough economy, back in the day, anytime you heard that they're ready to check references, you pretty much thought you had the job in the bag at that point. You really did, and for the most part, you did. Not necessarily the case right now. They may have a couple, three candidates, and they're really looking to make the right hiring decision. Companies just tend to spend more and more time sort of looking at that putt, if you will. They're analyzing it and saying, is this the right person? And so sometimes that reference check can be the difference maker. Not always, but it can be. And because it can be, I think you need to do all that's within your power to make sure that that works for you. So with that in mind, let's talk about that a little bit. References. First of all, just some general bookkeeping things. One is don't put them on your resume. Don't even put the references available upon request. Just leave that out. You do need to have a separate document that does list your references. I minimally you want to have 3, but ideally you'd like to have 5 or 6, and they would transcend from, let's say, ideally a most recent employer, if you can do that. Perhaps even a customer, somebody that you sell to, buy from, that sort of thing. It could also be someone who you've known through your education, depending on your age, perhaps a professor from college, that sort of thing. Ideally, it's people who can attest to your professional acumen. They can attest to your business ethics in a variety of ways. So sort of a cross-section, if you will, of people that you've dealt with, but ideally your boss, a past boss, those are the best sorts. Again, not always feasible in many cases, but you want to try for that. So having said that, what you'd like to do now is to ask the employer if it would be all right for you to help facilitate the reference check. The reason being, and I'd even go ahead and offer this and say, well, with cell phones, yes, I certainly want to give you their contact info. My concern is you might catch them in the middle of a driving home from work and that sort of thing, and I want to make sure that they have time to really devote. Because it's important. It's important to me as a candidate, and I'm sure you want to get good information and not have them talk while they're distracted. So if it would be okay, could I get a couple of windows of time and then allow me to help set this up with my reference? So offer to do that. Many employers will just say, no, that's fine. Well, I'll try, and if they can't talk to me, we'll talk at another time. But at least you've tried that. Secondly, and this is probably the most important step, and I would say that it's something you can control, and that is, and I assume you've already talked to your references in preparation for your job hunt, so they know that you've actually put them down as a reference. But it doesn't hurt to give them a call and explain to them briefly the job that you're interviewing on and what you understand the employer is looking for, and to help coach your reference and say, well, John, for example, they're going to ask probably questions, or they certainly have asked me questions about how I work independently or my problem-solving ability, that sort of thing. So be prepared to talk about that, and just to refresh your memory, remember that time when we did blank or when I did blank. So you're not leading the witness in terms of telling them things that they need to talk about that perhaps they're not prepared or don't want to talk about. All you're doing is suggesting some things that might be helpful when that call comes in. After all, your references want to help you, otherwise they wouldn't be a reference. So you're planting some seeds there, giving them some ideas that hopefully will help make you look good. And the last step in this is to do a follow-up. After that call has been made by the employer, it's a good idea to get back in contact with your reference, if you can do so, and ask, how did it go? Was it your impression that the employer had any concerns? Did they ask questions about things that perhaps you weren't expecting? What that does is, at least now as the candidate, that gives you a sense for the temperature of the employer, if you will. You may not get a chance to necessarily overcome those, but at least you kind of know what you're dealing with, particularly if you ever did get a chance to speak with them one last time. but it gives you an idea as to how well you've done to this point. So that's an idea, some tips on working with references to help them do a better job of selling you to the employer. And that's going to wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series, talking about, well, dealing with coaching your references. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.